Welcome to the Inner Compass podcast, where we slow down, listen beneath the noise, and learn to trust the quiet wisdom within. If you've been here before, you've known this space as the Lori Lindsay podcast. And while my name will always hold a place in my heart, the evolution into the Inner Compass reflects something deeper, something more intentional. Because of this work, this space, it's never really been about me, it's about you, your clarity, your intuition, your ability to come home to yourself and make soul-led decisions in a world that often pulls you in every direction. The Inner Compass is that steady place within you, the part that already knows, the part that doesn't panic, it doesn't rush, it doesn't perform, but simply guides. And this podcast is here to help you strengthen that connection through grounded spirituality, honest conversations, and real life integration. So let's take a deep breath, let your shoulders drop, and let's begin. Today's conversation is one I'm really looking forward to. I'm joined by Dr. Stephanie K. Hopkins, an animal empath, communicator, and energy healer whose work beautifully bridges the world of intuition, healing, and our deeper connection with animals. Stephanie's journey into this work began in an unexpected way through her own healing process after concussion. As she turned to meditation as a part of her recovery, something opened and she began receiving messages, first from her own dogs. From there, her gifts expanded, and she went on to train in animal communication and energy healing, including work influenced by Daniel McKinnon, and her and and has developed a profound ability to tune into the emotional and energetic world of animals. What I love about Stephanie's perspective is that she doesn't just communicate with animals, she helps us understand what animals may be reflecting back to us, our own energy patterns, and even the collective conscious we are all a part of. This is a conversation about intuition, healing, connection, and the wisdom that exists beyond words. So let's dive in. Welcome, Stephanie. How are you today?
Hi, thank you. I'm great. It's so great to be here. And I loved listening to your also introduction to the
Oh,
podcast. Thank you for that direction to let my shoulders drop and take a breath. I needed
yeah.
that too today. So wonderful
And
to
my
be.
shoulders kind of keep up going up. And yeah,
Yeah, they just keep rising if I let them.
that's right. Can you take us back to the moment when your abilities began to shift after your concussion? And what did you experience? What did it feel like from the inside?
Yeah, when I look back, it's interesting. So these I always think about, my story of sort of quote unquote awakening. In some ways, it's always a little bit of a fiction, right? Because when I look back, things are clear now. But when I was inside of it, I had no idea really what was happening. And it's kind of remarkable to me now how long it took me to understand what was going on. And so, I would love to say that I got a concussion, I started meditating, and then everything began. But it actually was a few years after that. I was very stubborn, is one of the ways that I like to put it. And when I started meditating, it was sort of a means to an end and that end was to try to keep going at the pace that I was going at. So I had been in academia. I had left to bartend. I was really caught up in the world of bartending. I was also had a writing consulting business where I was helping people with their dissertations and turning dissertations into books. And I was very, very busy in my mind always. I didn't know any other way. And so when I first started meditating, it was the only way that I was able to continue to do my work. So it would basically meditation would lower what I call like that brain ceiling and the pain of the concussion for maybe 15 minutes at a time. So I learned to like meditate, go back to the work, meditate, go back to the work. But in some ways, it doesn't matter that my intentions for meditation weren't pure, to put those in air quotes, because the meditation did it started to do its work anyway. It created space in my overthinking brain. And I wouldn't have called myself an overthinker, although some people did call me an overthinker. To me, it was just normal to be thinking so much. But one of the ways that I've come to think of intuition, it's sort of like, this image comes to mind of an airport. And if the airport is just crowded with planes, like nothing else can land. So there was no
Mm,
space for intuitive information to land. Meditation helped create some space, and it also helped me come to know myself. So it helped me come to know my own thoughts, my own feelings, my own sensations, which then in time, when I finally was able to recognize intuitive information coming in, I was more equipped to differentiate what was me from what was an animal or spirit communicating with me. So I feel like there's lots to. So the way that it really happened, I think it was like I would describe it as slow, 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 and then very, very fast.
mm,
So around the same time that I was having my own health issues, in addition to the concussion, I was having a lot of mystery autoimmune symptoms. One of my dogs was also having his own mystery symptoms that nobody could figure out. So I was desperate to help him. And then
right.
these little breadcrumbs, right, which now I can see form a story of leading me towards waking up. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but at the time, I don't know, I was just swirling in a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, a lot of pain as well. And I had ordered a book online about animal communication. I had no idea what it was. At the same time, I had started to see an energy healer for my own pain that someone recommended to me. And she had said to me one day, "Have you ever thought of becoming an animal communicator?" And I was like, "That's really funny. I
Mm,
just ordered a book, but what is it? I don't even know what it is." And so I, for some reason, was able to finally make the decision to take a class. And that's when I found Danielle McKinnon at Crapalo. So I went to this class in animal communication. Um, Actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. See,
that's okay.
it's complicated
Well,
in there.
and it's
Yeah,
messy. Don't you think
it's
spiritual
very
awakenings
messy.
are messy? Like you talked about in the beginning, that, I think a lot of people think that spiritual awakenings happening and it's very linear and that this happens and then this happens and this happens. But I think your story is much more common where it's messy.
Yeah.
You're working through things, the shadow work. Kind of forces you in that direction. But let's talk about some of those first communications you had with animals. How did it come through? And you mentioned earlier, how did you had to learn to separate what was coming from spirit, what was coming from other people, what was coming from animals. So how did you know that it was coming from animals?
Yeah. Um,
See, it's
I want to
messy.
say, it is, it's really, really messy. I want to just back up, if it's okay, just a little
Go
bit.
right ahead.
One of the things that I think, I've been thinking about this question of how did my own abilities develop before I intentionally started to develop them, right? I think that
Mm,
there's the development of the abilities, and then there's the development of your awareness of your abilities. And when you become aware that there's something to develop, then things can take off. And
right.
so for me, one of the things that was really important is actually having a narrative framework that held space for the spiritual explanation of what was going on, because I
Mm,
wasn't living inside of that for most of my life. I didn't have a conscious relationship with the spiritual. So everything that happened to me, my body, my animals, whatever was going on in my life, I would interpret it through a lens that didn't have any space for a spiritual understanding or a kind of soul
Mm.
level to things. So it must be something I'm doing wrong, or let me go, stay inside of this land of medical diagnoses, which are helpful, but not the full story. And
Mm-hmm.
so it really did take other people to bring in a kind of spiritual lens, of spiritual narrative. And it took someone telling me, oh, you're a channel, you're a medium, for me to understand what was happening. And that person was like, look around you. Let's, like, what do you see around you? And then I became aware that there were a lot of other people in spirit in the room with me. And she
Mm-hmm.
actually helped me begin to name what I see and give me a language for that. Um, and so that was really, really crucial. That shifting of the narrative lens through which I understand the happenings in my own life was really, really crucial for me to understand that there was something to develop here. And then
Right.
once that became clear and I saw all the people in the room, I was like, whoa, I've got to learn to manage this. I didn't sleep for a couple of months, which I think also maybe is common. I didn't know
Yes.
how to set boundaries. Like, what do I do?
Mm-hmm.
What do I do now? And the
Right.
animals actually, so then I took the animal communication class, and animals, one of the first things that they did is worked with me on boundaries. But now to go to your this beautiful question of what those first communications were like. I mean, again, messy, so messy, right? It kind of felt like, I don't know if you ever played this game when you were a kid or maybe as an adult for some of us, but where you go underwater, you go underwater with someone and you're trying to speak underwater and you're trying
Oh,
to
yeah.
you're hearing sounds and it's all muddled.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of
Garbly.
felt like that. It was like I'm
Yeah.
underwater, someone's trying to speak to me, garbled. It's all garbled.
Right.
But I was getting little bits of information and I was able to get validation for what I was receiving. So that validation, being able to practice with other people, with my teacher, Danielle McKinnon at the time, um, was really, really crucial, not only in my being able to identify, oh, this piece of information is true, it's verifiable, it's
Mm.
evidential, but it also helped me develop my own internal sensor for what was true and what was accurate and what was not accurate. So it's like I'm
Yeah.
developing two things at the same time. I'm developing a sense of the language of my intuition, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
developing an internal um, checks and balance system that helps me trust my own emerging sense of discernment.
And that is so important because a lot of my students talk about that. Like, I don't know, do you think that's true? There's a lot of that feeling of, I want validation. And you talked about that, that you looked for evidence. And I think that that's important. And the more that you say, yep, that was accurate, it builds that trust with the intuitive world.
Yeah, and also no, that isn't accurate, is
Right,
equally
right.
as important. And we can get in our own heads about the no's, but the no's are so crucial.
To
Like if
balance
you
it.
if, if you're never getting that no, you're also not developing that sense of, oh, right, that helps, getting the no's helps you identify what it feels like for your brain to be interpreting, for your brain to
Mm-hmm.
be making meaning of something, for you to be projecting your own stuff, which is really, really important to be able to know, with people, of course, but especially when we are communicating with animals, because we tend to do it all the time. And one of the things that I have learned from these years of communicating with animals is that their perspective is often very, very different than ours. And if
Mm.
we are not aware of where we're projecting our own stuff onto animals, we're not going to really be able to hear and receive the messages that they have for us.
Yeah. I'm going to step back just a minute. And you talked about how being an empath, these are my words I'm putting on top. Being an empath is like talking underwater with someone or spirit or animals. And I think people outside of the woo-woo world assume that we hear things crystal clear, like in the movies. If you build it, he will come, right? And that's not how it works with most people, especially empaths, because we're dealing with feelings and emotions and energy. Yes, we might be clairaudient, but it's not that way. So I think it's good that you preface that when you said all of that. And I just want to clarify that for our listeners that once again, it's not like the movies, right?
Right, right.
Yeah.
It's not like the movies. It does get clearer,
Hmm.
but what makes it clearer is practice, more
Yes.
yeses and nos, and also really coming to know yourself really, really, really well, so
Right.
that you know the parts of you that show up for
Exactly.
the communication, and you can differentiate, right? If an animal's voice sounds like the voice that you're walking around with in your head that is berating you all day, right? Knowing
Yes.
probably that's not the animal, right? If your
Hmm.
animal sounds just like your fears, that's also a
That's
signal. It's probably not
right.
the animal, actually.
Yeah.
That's still that same voice that you're walking around with. And so it is a delicate balance. It is nuanced work. Um, but I think that oftentimes, yes, right, we want it to, we want it to work like it does in the movies. And often that means we do come to intuitive development with some idea of what that should look like. Oftentimes, we think it should be a visual, like a very clear visual, like a movie. And for some, I do receive visuals, but even the visuals they're more dreamlike. They're more like the dream visuals. But if you are expecting your intuition to look like a movie, what that also means is that you might be missing all the other beautiful ways that intuitive
That they're
information
communicating.
is coming in that's just not on your radar. Um, and so coming to any kind of intuitive development, not only with a sense of yourself and the parts of yourself that you're bringing, but also your own beliefs around what it should look like for you is going to be really important as well.
Oh, and that's true. That's true because you might want it to look like your friend who's been doing it forever, but it's coming in differently for you. And as many people who are spiritual, there are that many ways of being spiritual. So
Yeah.
it's good not to compare. So you were talking about trusting. I call it clarifying the signal or taking away the static. And and you've already talked about that. But I want to know, when was a time that you had moments of doubt that you like this isn't correct, or a time that you used that doubt to further move on with your communicating with animals? What helped you move from questioning to knowing it?
Yeah, thank you for this question. I love this question also because I think that doubt gets a bad rap.
Hmm.
And I think it's actually really important. I have, much of the time in my life, I have been a person who's prone to anxiety. So I kind of, the system comes with some doubt. And to me, um, as long as doubt is not running the ship, running the whatever vehicle you imagine yourself driving, as long as doubt is
Yeah.
not in charge, as long as it's not stopping you, as long as it's not like paralyzing you from sharing, playing, trying, receiving, I think it actually can be a really important component for um, like ethical intuitive work, right? It does create, I think of it sort of as an annoying but really important friend who keeps me in check. And so I actually tend to think that the opposite of doubt or the antidote to doubt is not certainty. We want certainty. We want to have that clarity again, like in the movies. We want certainty, but I think that certainty can be a little dangerous sometimes.
Right. It keeps us
And
grounded.
yeah, it keeps us like learning to move inside of uncertainty and share anyway. I think can be really important. I think instead the antidote to doubt is playfulness, silliness, laughter, right? If there's some communication that you are wanting from an animal that feels too heavy, that feels like the outcome, it's impossible to not be attached to that outcome, get help with that question and then work with something lighter, more playful that creates a little space where it's actually
Mhm.
okay to make a mistake.
Right.
Um,
And
it, but
being open to what comes.
yeah, yeah, being open to what comes and what, if that means, um, again, right, getting help for questions that feel heavier, but working, practicing with your animal on questions that feel silly, light, that allow you to get into that space so that
Hmm.
when the doubt comes, it doesn't, the stakes aren't so high. You can say, you know
Right.
what, maybe if I get this wrong, it's okay. Because it's that learning to share anyway, um, that and to be transparent about the doubt. So in the beginning, I remember some of my very first practice animal communication sessions. And it was really important. Actually, it's sort of the opposite of like corporate world interview, where it's like fake it till you make it. It was
Hmm.
really important for me to say, hey, I'm a little nervous, or if I was getting information that I wasn't sure of, to actually say, I'm not sure if this is me or if this is the animal, and I'm going to share it anyway.
Hmm.
And the animal's human could say, oh, no, that's definitely the animal. Or the animal's human could say, actually, I can't
Nope.
really take that.
Yeah.
And, eh, but it was, again, to me, I think it's, ethical. It's more ethical to be able to say, I'm actually unsure about this piece. And I understand, again, that self-doubt can close the channels, it can get in the way of you
Yeah.
receiving
If
information. But I actually don't think that's the doubt's fault. I think um, it's our attachment to doing things right, which can often come from a very beautiful place of wanting to help. But again,
hmm
how do we create space for ourselves? How do we move the energy so that we can feel playful enough, light enough to be uncomfortable, to make
hmm
mistakes, to be wrong, to say the thing anyway, and then to get the response from another human who can say, "Oh my gosh, yes, you don't understand
With
that." Actually is so true. And that's what builds our not just our trust, but again, our nuanced, intuitive language over time.
so how do animals communicate with you? Do you do you get it in the brain? Do you feel it in the body? How do animals communicate with you?
Yes, all of the above, I'd say. Nowadays, all of the above. So I do get images, I get words, I do get whole sentences from animals. I get a lot of downloads and knowings. One
Hmm.
of my, I would say, primary clairs is what I call feeling knowing. I get sort of a
Hmm.
feeling and a knowing at the same time. I get physical sensations. So, and the way that I receive, so there are a lot of different, I think, factors as to like how I receive information from animals and why I'm receiving in a certain way. One is how my intuition works. So when an animal is connecting with us, when we're connected with an animal, and our animal knows our intuitive system, they can read our
Yeah,
entire
they are far more ahead than we are, right?
so much more ahead than us. So they know how we can receive information the best, the clearest, and they're going to work with this on that. They also know what we might need to develop. So, one of the things that I remember so distinctly when I was beginning my animal communication journey is that I was, as I think I said before, looking for the images. I was like, I want to see the stuff. And I was getting images. But then one day, all the images disappeared. I wasn't getting images at all anymore. And I started to panic because I thought I was't getting any intuitive
Yeah, like
information.
this is what I'm relying on, right?
And I was like,
And then it disappears.
yeah, it was like, I'm not
Mm-hmm.
working. I'm not working. It's not working
Yeah,
anymore. And I was connecting with this very wise, very old turtle. And I heard very, very, very faintly, it felt so far away, like, you're not listening. And I was like,
oh,
oh, okay, all right. And so I started to, so all the animals actually that I was working with all knew that, like, nope, we're not giving her any images until she starts to develop these other
develop.
things because she's not paying attention to other stuff. And so I didn't get images for it was like months. Nobody, no animals would communicate with me through images. They gave it back to me, but once I had developed my capacity for hearing, my awareness, I say my capacity for hearing, but the capacity was always there. It was once I developed my awareness of information coming in that way. And then that worked kind of knowing, even though it's one of my strongest, most comfortable clairs, actually, in some ways, it's the most difficult to trust. It came, the trusting of it came after working with my other clairs because you really being able to discern that difference between a knowing coming in and your own thoughts. It's like finer
Separating them.
tuned there, right?
Yeah,
I trust that. Um, and so that's one of the right. So my own intuitive system is one of the factors. Also in animals, personality and the information that they're wanting to communicate. So one example of this is I work with a lot of animals who are in transition out of their physical bodies or moving towards that point. And sometimes um, the animal will give me information in a way that is very energetic. Like I'll feel this very light energy, right? And part of that is like they're communicating how their energy is slowly moving out of their physical body. So
wow.
there might be less images, there might be less of other kinds of information, and part of that is they're wanting to give information to their human about where the animal is in their transition journey. But then also some animals, some senior animals, or some animals who are approaching the transition process might do the opposite. They might actually give me information, give me an image of them as they were when they were much younger. Lots of energy, lots of images, sounds, all kinds, because they're wanting to communicate to their human that, hey, I'm still me.
Yeah.
My essence is still here, even
Remember me
though
this way.
I've got all these changes happening in my physical body, you know, and even though things look a certain way, I want you to also, yeah, be able to focus on I'm still me, right? So
Right.
there can be lots of different reasons why information comes in the way that it comes as well.
Right. I mean, it's no different than someone who is a human and they're starting to go to that period of life where they're going to go to the other side. They will sometimes communicate things like, remember me the way I am, not this person huddled or laying in this bed or huddled in this chair. It's the same sort of thing. Remember me of who I truly am, who my spirit truly is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And less being sad that this is part of just the cycle, right? I'm getting emotional. So let's
Yeah.
talk about emotions. I
Yes.
get very emotional. There's two subjects that I really any cruelty to animals or cruelty to children, I start getting emotional. And when animals die, it's hard for me. Even
Yeah.
animals on the side of the road that were hit, it's hard for me. Anyways, so
Yeah.
what have animals taught you about emotions, especially compared to about how humans process emotions? Do they carry trauma? Do they know how to release it better than we do? Um, what have you learned about emotions?
Yeah. So I feel like, okay, this is a big complex topic,
It
especially
is.
when we're talking about trauma. And I will do my best. But these are just little bookmarks. So emotions, what one of the things that I've learned from animals around emotions is that they want us to feel them, right? So for often we can get into this thing where we think that we are supposed to be fine, we're supposed to be strong for our animals, we are uh, supposed to be somehow perfectly present, which we've somehow translated in our mind as calm, zen, no feelings. And um, and those of us who are close to animals, probably at one point or another have had some experience with an animal where that animal is I would say, or the animals have taught me, calling up some really big emotion in us, whether that is sadness or grief or frustration or anger or overwhelm or something, right? And so
Mhm.
our animals are working with us on actually becoming more in touch with our own emotions. And when they do want us to be present with them, um, but that doesn't mean not feeling, right? It means being present with ourselves and with our feelings. And oh, I was going to say something and it just, so this is my signal to
It'll
get
come
quiet
back.
for a minute. It's like either, yeah,
Go ahead.
there's something. All right, I'm gonna get quiet. It's funny. This is working in the middle of it. This is how it works in a session of like, nope, that's not where I'm supposed to be headed right now. So where is it? Yeah, right. We often are very good at either trying not to feel. Or for those of us who feel a lot, we might analyze our feelings, get really good at naming our feelings, but that also is a sort of self-soothing mechanism or way to not feel. Um, it can feel too much, right, to feel. And so our animals don't want us to be these perfect non-feeling robots, right? What they're asking of us is honesty, congruence, being in alignment with our thoughts, feelings, and words. So when we're walking around, I'm fine, but we're not fine, right? We're splitting ourselves in some ways. And so rather than acknowledging how we're feeling and learning ways to be with ourselves unconditionally with whatever feelings are coming up. And so animals work with us in lots of ways, and um, some of those ways are they mirror back to us. So they might, like a quick example might be, right, the sort of person frenetically moving around the house, getting ready, trying to leave the door, and then the cat and the dog are they're doing it too. Everybody's spinning, right? It's just like the
Yes.
energy is just
Yeah,
getting.
they're all feeding off each other's energy.
So I've definitely been there. So that's one way that animals work with us by mirroring back, because we may not actually really understand that we're frenetic because it might feel totally normal for us. We might have grown up in that kind of household. It's just normal until we see our animal doing it, and then we're like, huh, that spinning around looks funny.
Right.
Um, but they also might work with us by modeling for us. So that would be where the animal is really chill while we're spinning around. I mean, it's
Resting.
like, actually, you know what? I'm gonna move really, really slowly. And I'm
Mhm.
gonna also maybe get in your way as you're trying to rush, and grab the keys. Like I'm just gonna move slowly in your way. Like,
Yes, to get
hey,
you to slow down,
there's
think.
another way of doing things. But then also animals work with us by calling our stuff up, right? Calling up a big emotion. And that's where, it can be really interesting where if you have, um, a multi-human household, um, and an animal is exhibiting a behavior that drives one person crazy, but not another person, right? The other person's like, what's the big deal? But this other person's like, oh my God, I can't, why is this? That's a signal that that animal's working with that person on that particular behavior. And maybe working with the other
Yeah.
person in other ways, but that big emotion is a signal like, oh, hey, there's something to see here. Um,
So are you saying that animals help us with our shadow work?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Like they
Yeah.
bring it out of the shadows for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, absolutely. And also ask us to do shadow work with as much love and compassion for ourselves as we can grow into for ourselves, right? So animals have massive
Wow.
unconditional love, which includes themselves. And we humans clearly are not there yet. Um,
Hmm.
and so, even those of us who might really be open to and love working on ourselves, sometimes, right, we can catch ourselves working on ourselves because we actually think we're broken and we need to fix ourselves. It's not coming from a place of unconditional love. And so, animals, um, help us with shadow work, call up our stuff, but not so that we can see what jerks we are, but so that we can actually work with ourselves
Yeah.
from a place of love and compassion. And I realize that I haven't gotten to your question about trauma yet, which is itself
That,
a really big.
that's okay. Yeah. And if you don't want to cover trauma, that's okay.
I,
I do have a story that one of my students shared with me that um, their son's wife adopted a dog who was it was her dad's dog who passed away. So the dog was there when I don't want to say owner because we're not owners, but their companion passed away and was found the next morning by somebody. And so the dog is now with the daughter of the gentleman who passed away. And my cousin was sharing this story about how every night at about 3 a.m., it's the same time every night, gets up and wanders and does a full um, perimeter of the home. And she said to me, do you think that that's a trauma response? Or possibly that their companion died at that time? Or there's some sense of urgency for this dog to make sure there's a protection? And I said, I don't know. That's such a great question. And I thought I would pose that to you, not for you to go into the feelings or emotions of that animal, but do animals repeat patterns because of trauma or um
so first I want to say, and it feels important to say this, and right? Like I again, like ethics and the integrity of this work is really,
Right.
really important, and consent is really important. So
Right. Don't
I,
tap into that. Just in
yeah, right.
general, do animals.
Right. But it
Right.
also feels important where that particular dog, so I can speak to patterns that I've seen, and that particular dog, that particular animal, um, right, I would want to ask them themselves. So I'm not going to speak for any animal without asking them, and I wouldn't connect with any animal or human without their permission and consent. So that
Exactly.
feels really important to say. But I think that, so in my experience, what I have learned from animals is that they the answers to the questions are often really surprising and different than our human view. So
Yeah.
the question of trauma is complex, partly because we are also still among ourselves, humans, defining and redefining what we mean by trauma, right? That is a fluid definition. Some definitions of trauma that are coming to me now, right? It's like I think I've heard, and I don't have the brain to remember the sources, so I apologize, and I could be getting something wrong. But one definition of trauma that I've heard is like, right, when something horrific happens, but no one is around to process that with the person for whom it happened, right? So
Hmm.
it's both about the thing happening, but also the inability to process it, to have that be witnessed, right? There's no witness for the thing that happened. And
Right.
so there's some aspect there of a moment in the past feeling like stuck and being taken into the present. And then another definition of trauma that's coming to mind is, and again, I can't remember my sources right now, but where all trauma, physical, emotional trauma, is also spiritual trauma because of a split that happens at that moment, at that moment of trauma, um, where from a shamanic perspective, right, it might be described as a part of the soul is lost, or part of the soul gets stuck in the past, or part of the soul, um, right? There's again this fragmentation that is kind of built into this definition of trauma. So um, it's a complex thing, right, that we're still trying to understand for ourselves. Um, there are things that animals know how to do that we don't know how to do yet. And for, some of the research on trauma that exists currently, some of it does reference, animals' capacity to shake off something that has
Oh.
happened, get it out of our muscular, like to have the, like animals will do the shake off to be able to shake
Oh.
off the energy, shake off and move on from things, right? There's
Oh.
an
Wow.
innate capacity for that. There's also a capacity that animals have, which is they don't um they don't exist inside of the same illusion of duality that we humans exist in, right? It's like they're 100% physical and 100% spiritual at the same time. For us humans, that's really hard to grasp. We either move back and forth, or we sometimes try to be more spiritual as a way of getting out of the challenges of being physical. But we're kind of moving between these, right? And we're very much more living in the illusion of separation and disconnectedness than animals are. And so there is a way that there are ways that animals have of, if we want to use this lens, recovering fragmented aspects of their soul
Right.
that we are maybe just beginning to learn how to do or recognize that we have the capacity for as well. What makes this an even more complex topic is, again, this layer of this really, really important thing that animals have taught me, which is that they are, again, this that they're working with us humans to help us grow and evolve. So there may be cases where an animal is holding on to trauma for the benefit of helping a human learn and grow and evolve. And maybe they are holding on to, when I say holding on to holding on to the energy of a past event to be able to involve a human in that healing relationship, or there's something to teach a human or several humans or humans collectively on that level. Um, and then there are these moments where often we humans, we want to know about an animal's past. Like, is this because of trauma? It's that it's our sensitivity to animals. It's also our lens and perspective um, of, oh, if we understand something about a past, then maybe we can um, change something and feel better now. We're kind of also projecting that onto animals. But there are a lot of times where an animal's like, oh, I don't, that's in the past. I don't want to go there. I want to live here now. I
Do
don't
they
even
live more? Do they live more in the here and now, in the present? Okay.
100%. Yes.
Whereas us humans, we have a hard time being in the present. We're in the past and in the future, and being grounded in the moment is so hard for us. So that's
Yeah.
interesting that animals just they want to live here now.
Yeah. Yeah. And here now, again, right, this being present doesn't mean being perfect. It doesn't mean not feeling things. It doesn't mean also having a brain, but being able to be here now with ourselves and our racy brains and our messy feelings and our complicated, fragmented selves, right, is um it's possible. But it is very challenging for us. Also, because we are often judging ourselves and thinking that we should feel differently than we actually feel. So,
Hmm.
animals uh, often help us tune into how we're actually feeling about something because they uh, they help us be messy and recognize where we are trying to control so much, control ourselves, control them, control each other. And, you know, if you've ever tried to control an animal or another person, you know, it's like,
It does work.
how's that
That doesn't work.
going? How's
No,
that
no,
going for you?
no, no, no. Yeah, no. It makes it like 100% worse.
Yeah, I just
Let them be who they are, right?
I have this, I have this image of my dog now, Ziggy, when she was a puppy. We were living in this place. It was a rental that had this beautiful flower beds. It came with these beautiful flower beds. All the flowers were toxic to dogs. And it was her favorite thing to just throw herself into the flower beds and then get them in her mouth. And I was just in this panic state all the time. And like my energy was very intense around it. And wow, did that make the problem worse. So we went through a fun period of time where she was really, really working with me on like, first of all, noticing that energy in me
Yeah.
and then figuring what to do about things. But it didn't trying to control her did not help.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, animals are just like people in so many ways, you know. They're trying, you know, our goal is to live in the now and they can help us with that.
They can help
So,
them.
before we finish up, I want people to know, you know, what do you do during the day? What would you say is your job? Or and how can people get a hold of you if they have questions? Do you work because this podcast will go out all over the US. Do you work remotely with animals? Just what would you like to share about your work with animals and how people can get in touch with you?
Yeah, thank you. I do this is my job. I communicate with animals. I do other things as well. So I do work remotely. Most of the sessions are over Zoom, or by phone, mostly Zoom. I like to see people's faces. Hello. Um, so yes, I do animal communication sessions. I do medical intuition for animals and humans. I'm also a psychic medium. I do coaching. So all of these offshoots of that began with animal communication, but developed into these other ways of working with animals and humans. I also do small group coaching, which is really like I love doing small group coaching as well because it's personalized readings. It's a very like a small group, but you also get the benefit of being in a group with like-minded animal lovers or people and hearing other people's readings and messages come through as well. So often there'll be a kind of theme around those small group coachings. And I'm about to sort of unroll some beginning animal communication classes as well, some smaller workshops and some longer
Very
classes
cool.
as well. Yeah, so you can find me on my website, stephaniekHopkins.com. There's also on my website a free meditation that you can download that can help you feel. It's called a telepathic love letter to your animal. So it's a guided meditation to help people connect with their animal. It's also a little bit of a sneaky way where you're practicing animal communication, but not calling that. So, your brain doesn't
Right.
get in the way. So that you can get experience like, oh, actually, you can just kind of slide into this.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so I do one-on-one sessions, small group coaching classes upcoming. I might be forgetting something, but it's all right.
So you can visit her on her website, and I'm going to have all that in the show notes that you can reach out to her directly. Wow. I've learned so much. This is my second conversation with Stephanie, and I've learned so much more. Um, Not only about communicating with animals, but also the whole woo-woo. Um, there's so much aspect to all of this, and I am definitely a student of learning about spiritualism. And like, who knew animals were a part of it all too? I mean, I did. I communicate with animals. I love animals. So thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your knowledge. And hopefully, people will reach out to you with questions, concerns about their animals.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm open to questions, concerns, all of that. And I'll just say animals are incredible, incredible teachers. They've taught me so much. They're incredibly wise, sovereign beings. They know more than
Mm,
we do. They have our best interest at heart. They know that what helps them helps us, and vice versa. They are tuned into our interconnectedness. And, we are really working together. They see us as working together to, yeah, to make this planet a place that where we can all thrive. So thank you so much for
that's
today.
beautiful. Thank you so much. I hope you have a blessed day.
You too.